Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I've been ordered to make a start, and hopefully other people will join us, or as probably the title of my speech is probably one of the lesser ones, they'll all go off somewhere else. I don't claim responsibility, I just got told what to come and talk about. I'm Andy Mansfield. I'm a marketing communications manager that works in Honeywell, and my responsibility is to look after the communications of all the domestic and commercial heating and ventilating controls right the way across the UK. My colleague here, Steve, is one of our regional sales area managers, and this is his patch, so he's looking after me to make sure I get away on time and you don't lock me up. But why is it marketing that's talking to you about controls, and why is it Honeywell that's talking to you about controls? Well, we do an awful lot of work as marketeers with our engineers to make sure that they don't just design things for engineers. I have this logic that says you leave engineers alone long enough and they'll carry on making something and they'll never get to the end of it, but also they'll make it in a way that they'd like to use it, and as they intimately know what they're doing, they forget about the people who don't. And that's where marketing comes in, because they actually look at what customers want and how customers use things and feed that back into the design and the functionality of the products that we sell. Why Honeywell? Well, I actually work for a very large business that spans across the world, but I actually work for the division in the orange, which is the automation and control solutions. And that covers everything from the control of very large jet engines right the way down to a simple thermostatic radiator valve that sits on your radiator. There's all sorts of big numbers, and we employ an awful lot of people, but the key is that we work in many different industries, so we understand the concept of control. Please join us if you want to. Or did you want your phone? Okay, thank you. Okay. You as well. Okay. Thank you. So across the world, we've got something that is controlling something else. So we understand that it's the user needing to be in control, not the control needing to be in control of the user. But also, 50% of our portfolio offers energy efficiency benefits. So there's a couple of drivers when we look at controls. One is, does it do what it should do and control the things that it's meant to, but can it actually add value and add energy efficiency into the way that things work? So in terms of credentials, by adopting existing Honeywell products, you can actually reduce energy consumption. And that's been proven in many different walks of life that we live in, whether it's the big buildings like the Shard, whether it's small buildings like a two-bedroom house. There is something that we do that controls something else that saves money. So in terms of our credentials, that's where I sit in the home solutions, and we cover everything from houses right the way through to the big buildings, and we work with things like timers, programmers, thermostatic radiator valves. We do an awful lot of water controls as well. So everything that we do on a daily basis talks about how you use controls and how they're installed. So we should know that in a domestic and a commercial environment, heating controls save money. So I want to get this part of it out the way first before we start looking at the simplicity and the challenging nature of the way that people interact with their heating. In the Salford Test House last year, my trade body, TACMAR, ran a series of tests which actually proved from a base of no temperature control, we fully admit that if you put in a full set of heating controls, you'll save yourself 40% on your energy costs. And as DEC tell you that heating and lighting are 83% of your traditional energy expenditure in a domestic home, you can see you're actually making a statement about the things that matter to people most, which is their pocket. If you do things like zoning, you can actually add some more savings on top of that by looking at the way people use their lifestyles. But your lifestyle is different to my lifestyle, so in terms of trying to get a measurement on that, it's very difficult. If you'd start from the premise that every time you fire the boiler up it costs you money, the flip side and the reverse of that is every time you don't have to fire the boiler you save yourself money as well. By adding things, smart zones, and by adding controls that allow you to set your building to suit your lifestyle, you're setting yourselves up to be energy efficient. Now I know people in the audience, by looking at the guest list, are not just one house people. You're looking after a whole estate of many different types with many different occupants, all needing many different things. But one of the provisos of everything that you're doing is if you heat unused spaces, it's wasting energy. It's looking at heating as a core of what you're doing and how your tenants, whatever language you use for them, customers, property owners, you need to give them the control that they need to save the money that they expect, but also to have the comfort and control that they demand. I actually went out to some of my colleagues and said, rightly or wrongly, what other things do you want me to say? And the one thing that came back very strongly, he says, if you don't tell people that heating is important, stupid, not controlling it is double stupid. And that was from, you know, the English on that was from a man who went to a private school, but I get the point. And that is why we spend an awful lot of money making sure that what we put out there in the marketplace can be well understood, and easily usable. Let's look at some of the things that have made what I'm about to challenge possible. Simple, 20 years ago, was a round thermostat on the wall and a timing box. It was wired. Installation was difficult. Retrofit installation was even more difficult. Decor, floors, walls, everything that needed to be changed to increase or upgrade heating controls made it difficult for the installer, the specifier, the property owner. But wireless, all of these products suddenly they're wireless. This thermostat here is wireless. Suddenly takes you into a whole new arena where you can add layers of control simply for people, and you can invest in the property and be sure that what you want to do you can actually retrofit simply. It's all on secure frequencies, it's well understood, it's a mature market now, and it's not dangerous to use in the sense that it's new. It's been there for a while now as wireless. From a simple wireless programmable thermostat, we're now getting up into a fully zoned wireless house that has got multiple temperature sensing points and one box wired into the boiler. How can you use that for your housing stock? In a way, isn't up to you. It's the way that your customers demand the level of control that they want, else they'll go somewhere else. These guys, they've really upset every manufacturer right the way across the world because they've raised the bar. Steve Jobs, in terms of form and function, this guy, Tim Berners-Lee, has said, okay, here is a tool where anyone can learn about anything, and people are now looking and saying, I want to learn about what things that are good for me, and then I'm going to go out there and find them. So he said, you can have it, and by God you can have it in a way that's good for you. The form of it is beautiful. The functionality of what we're providing across the iPads and all of the machines that come after that is now the bar that we all have to at least reach, if not jump over. And the same applies for heating controls. In the old days, the control was with the person that was in the property, but it meant they had to get up every time they wanted to turn the heating up or down, change the thermostat. Full control, it could be done when they wanted it, at the time that they wanted to do it. They just didn't like doing it, so they found ways around it. They opened windows, they put on cardigans, all of the things that are bad practice in terms of energy efficiency, but also comfort and control. But the control was there, they had it in their hands. But now what they're expecting is they want things to work for them easily, but they want things that are more complex to be done for them easily. They want to be able to do 6 time programs across a day. They want each day to be different. They want to be able to take a zonal temperature measurement and adjust the temperature in parts of their house, because that's what they know they can do, because there's people out there telling them that's what you need. But is that embedded within the simplicity of our heating controls? We did some consumer research and installer research last year where we actually looked at the things, the touch points that people were thinking about when it was about heating controls. It took us a while to get over the fact that when you said to them what's a heating control, most of them didn't know. But once we got past that and we started to really search what people wanted out of their heating controls, they wanted all sorts of things, which boils down to, I don't want to heat the house all the time, but I want to be comfortable. I'd like to heat rooms at different temperatures. It makes sense you don't go into the bedrooms all day. There was a whole drive towards zonal heating. But they also didn't understand a lot of what they could do with their controls in terms of the whole house concept that they've got at the moment. So they'd be talking, I went on a lot of this research, there was a guy that says, I don't touch my boiler because it will wear out if I keep turning it on or off. So I just keep it at a constant level and we just open the windows, and we wept. But that's a very uncommon thing. But to the other end of the scale, there's people just closing rooms off. There's all sorts of bad practices out there because people don't understand. I never look at the controls, I think they're in the boiler. I don't want to have to keep changing the program if I'm working at home all day. People's lifestyles are now beginning to demand more complicated heating programs and heating profiles. They don't just get up in the morning, go to school, go to work, come home again, weekends, do the standard stuff that a family does every weekend. Everybody's now different. Everybody goes out either to work, but they work from home. They work with childminders, and there's all various different lifestyles that make control of the property an awful lot more difficult unless you do it on a one-to-one basis. In terms of the relationships with the installers, there's a lot of people who understand that plumbing and heating is a professional thing and it needs to be done, and it needs to be done by a professional. But there is this sort of distrust that says, I'm not too sure, he's not trying to sell me something I don't want or repair something that doesn't need repairing. And that came through quite strongly. But very, very strongly, control, comfort, money saving. Control's the number one thing. People want to feel in control. And a standard simple system of thermostat and timer is not what they consider to be in control, because they recognise that their life is different and they're battling with their heating controls. So at the core, control emerged as a primary need, and we exploded it out to look at many different factors, but everything resonated back. Do I want to be, the horrible marketing word, in harmony with what I'm doing? Do I want to be free to do the things that I want to do, but do I want to be in control? At the end of the day, all of your tenants want to be in control, but they want to also understand how they can do it simply. And even the advances that we've made as a manufacturer in heating controls, we were the first about 8 years ago to take on board the EGA contracts. And for that we developed something fairly simple but fairly revolutionary. We called it line of text. what it effectively means is that in the screen on your program, it actually tells you what you're doing when you press the button, which is quite simple, but in those days it was quite revolutionary. Where do we take it now? The government, how occupants behave and interact with their homes, the National House Building Federation, that was sponsored by one of the government departments, is actually a whole report about why people in different houses the same houses have different energy expenditures. It's not rocket science, they do different things. But controlling those is a challenge that one whole house, one temperature measurement point, one time point is not going to do for you. So where in the future are the controls going? Let's take take a flat. You've got a different lifestyle, you've got a young family in there, they're working hard, they're working late, they're playing hard, and they're coming home late. They don't know what they're doing, they need the control, but what they want is the control when they're away. The family in the middle, a bit more settled, a bit more set, does have a family pattern, but has rooms in the house that are not used, or the children are using different things at different times. And then you've got the big family home, where anything goes, from guest rooms to offices to anything like that. And are there controls out there now that can do all of this? Our argument is yes, to a degree, but it's going to need an awful lot more adoption to get over some of the sticking points for the big property users, developers, runners, facilities management companies to take on board the challenges that are there. Now, I've picked out three. They're none of mine. The one thing that they do is they give external access to a single heating point and a single timing point. That then leads you to think, do I want to drive down the outside lane of the M25 making a change to my heating? No, but it does give me an additional layer of control when things change, when I get left in the office. Evo Home, this little baby here, we launched this year. It takes it another step further because it actually allows you to do the external access. Everybody demands everything to be run off their phones these days. But it gives you a zonal temperature measurement point, which then allows you to start to do that lifestyle across the property. But do we have this whole argument that says the people that are living in my property, it's too complicated for them? Is it an argument that says we really do just have to stick to a very simple temperature point on the wall? My challenge is, no. You've got to expand, you've got to extend, you've got to look at things that give your tenants, your customers, the level of control that they get from the rest of the world. They expect to do things wherever they are and whenever they want to do them. You think, oh, I've forgotten that television program. You pick up your phone. Suddenly you program the television program. You could be sitting in a cafe. You could be in a hotel. It's the same. People want the same with their heating. They want to be able to not have to worry about worrying. And they need to have all of that simple control, because that's the other side of it. You make it extremely complicated, people won't use it. You've got to do it in such a way as they have an affinity to what they're doing and an understanding of what you are allowing them to do. You're not giving them a blank sheet of paper, you're giving them choices. The simple case of programming a television program, if you use the Skybox, you can only do a few things. You can jog along by day, you might be able to search, you might be able to come up by time or channel. Everybody understands that. Our heating program now allows you to program on a set day, and the bar actually looks like the Skybox. Because what we're trying to do, I won't run the video because I've taken that too far, but what we're trying to do is give a simple set of controls, but with the most amount of functionality within there. So we don't just go, here's a time program, here's a time program per zone, per 6 time periods across however many days. Damn complicated to set up once, unless you have a lot of help from a scheduling wizard, which is built in there. But after that, the interaction with it is through a set of guided wizards or override actions that are one-button presses to take the property down or to go away on holiday. So set it up once, simply change it after that. And it's this level of functionality that people are going to demand because they're getting it elsewhere. They've all got their iPads, they can all slide, they can all move things up and down. You just go on a train journey these days and look around at the number of people doing different things on the same devices. And they're going to want to do that with their heating controls. And it will be the people that install those controls who have to make sure that the people get what they want but are told what they want and not trained but actually encouraged to engage in something that they don't engage with at the moment, but they have a feeling that they should. The control of the boiler is simple. All you've got to do is turn it on or off as and when you don't need it. The decision on when you don't need it is the complicated bit, because you don't need it in different places at different times on different days, and you have to set it up to actually do all of that without you thinking about it, and then only overriding the bits that you suddenly recognise are different to what you're normally doing. It's the same in many different walks of life now, and all of that functionality is being provided for people. So heating controls are going to be simple because they're going to simply allow you to do the complicated things that you want them to do. Installation is another argument. All of this technology needs very difficult, complex installation. It doesn't in the vast majority of situations that you come across, because the wireless installation helps you do it. The guided configurations make it easy to achieve. Now, battery life. Oh, horrible batteries. Batteries, social housing, don't like them. Okay, well, so we build in a different way of wiring up the TRV, and we build in a way of actually seeing which batteries are running, if you want to run it on batteries, which batteries are running down on the screen. So you're no more running around the property squinting on the floor to see which one's got a low battery warning on it. We're looking at all of the touch points that make your lives difficult, your customers' lives difficult, and therefore they make your lives difficult because they don't phone me up, they phone you up. And we're well aware of that. We're well aware of the we don't want to have to go back and sort out stuff problem, because it costs you money, it costs you time. And that is something none of us have and none of us want to do. So we've spent an awful lot of time looking at all of the points that could cause the user a problem. And we've built it in there as to say, what can we do? They control energy, but zoning can deliver, we've replicated, if you like, the TACMAR results on a zoned house as well, to say actually 40%, we can actually do that on a 2-zone property using our TRVs. But whenever you turn off the heat, you save energy, and the more heat you can turn off, the more energy you can save. So zoning, by actually sitting and thinking about how you interact with your house, and that's the difficult bit. It's the difficult bit for us marketeers to get across to the general public, when at the moment they have one switch or one dial, is to actually sit down and think about your lifestyle. Because you can zone by location, you can zone by foot traffic, you can zone by occupancy. You can do many different things, but you have to do it. You have to sit down and think about it. Think about it once, and then you're sorted. Your guest rooms, zone the guest rooms, that's fine. But have I got to really reprogram all of this when the guest when a guest comes to stay? No. You can create a custom zone, which happens when you press one button. So you've got someone come to stay for the weekend, press a button, guest room's ready to rock and roll. Build all of that in to something where you think, oh God, that's thousands of pounds. It's not. Depending on the zones, you can get the kit for this for £700, £800. It's much more expensive than a simple thermostat, recognise that, but it's a whole house heating system. The installer still just has to wire one box, and these fit on standard TRV bodies around the house, bind them in, then you're into programming. Because the way we looked at it was if it was expensive to install and it was difficult to install with lots of drain downs or new pipes or new oven valves or all that sort of stuff, no one's going to do it. We've got to make this as simple as possible to install as we are from a usable point of view. It's touchscreen, by the way, so people are actually now used to that level of functionality. So some of the things we built in. Okay, you've got the economy, one button press can drop the whole house down by a set number of degrees. Go away, anything up to 99 days, press the button, takes the whole property down to a set level, default 15 degrees, but you can change it to whatever you like. Day off, snow day, press the button, it's Saturday. Great, all the heating comes up. You can actually change that day if Saturday's not your right day. Obviously the heating off, the custom schedules. Easy timing, so you've got guided scheduling, it takes you through all that you want to do. There's a wizard. There's nice things on the zoning point in that you've got colour bars that show you, they don't come from anywhere, they'll always be green at 18 degrees, they'll always be red the next setup, that one set up, but it effectively gives you a visual idea of how the heat in your room should be. So if you get up to about 24, 25 degrees, it's a bright red. Hey, it's hot. It's just a visual sign. It does everything. It's one of those products that when you stand up and try and sell it, the first thing you say is the answer is yes, now what's the question? Because as a heating control, we've tried to say this is where the market should be. This is the bar that people have got to get to. But the idea is that it's simple and it's intuitive, I think is the right word, to say my people, I demand them, are demanding to do things, difficult things in a simple way. Can we actually achieve that? Can we actually achieve that with just a straightforward programmable thermostat? Can we achieve that with a time and temperature control? We've added functionality within the programmable thermostats and the timers for things like day offs and holidays. But we've then had to create a whole host of animations and videos to explain to people why, what they're there for and how to use them. We've recognised that in the past, where we've provided something we thought was really great and whizzy, people haven't used them because they haven't understood what the things do. So we're having to invest an awful lot more in the things that explain to customers what things do. So if you look at a vision of where we set out today, which was about simple heating controls, I think the challenges that we throw out there as a manufacturer is to say there's an awful lot of people going, simple is very simple. That's not the future. What is the future are controls that do an awful lot of things simply. And that's what the good manufacturers are going to be providing, whether it's just straightforward internet access and controllable by your phone, whether it's a full zone system that provides a number of different ways of interacting with the heating. Moving on to the whole connected homes piece, which is what else do you want to control in the same way on the same device that affects your house? When are you going to add the lighting on? Because at the moment your lighting control is very individual, it's very specific to you, but you've got used to controlling it as you walk out the room till you forget. But now, coming down the road, especially with some of the LED technologies, when they stop them flickering, there's all sorts of things that you can do to actually automatically control your lights. So when's that going to appear at the same time as heating? When's all the security stuff going to be integrated into something that's a central point? When am I going to be able to see you standing at my door by looking at my phone, but in the same way as I see my heating? Where is that all going to go? It's all going to come. Do we have to set ourselves up, manufacturers, property owners, as specifiers, as experts, to say, you've got to be aware that that's coming, or are we just going to be reactive and react to it as we go along? My claim is that the companies that didn't react to technology, that didn't grasp the things that consumers wanted to do, are no longer around. Go and ask the guys. I used to know a product manager for Comet. His words were, go about the internet, people will still come to the shops. Comet as a brand doesn't longer exist. Go and have a look at Blockbuster. My daughter worked for Blockbuster for many years, running a store, manager, really good, crying out to say, why don't we have something where you can stream movies and deliver movies? And the head office in the States and over here went, nah, I'll do that. Our business is in discs, is pushing, is rental. They're no longer around. The companies that don't embrace the need for people to do things when they want and wherever they want aren't going to be around. So simple heating controls, dials and timers, no, that's not the future. Simple heating controls that do complicated things are. I'm lucky enough to have a big commercial division within the same company, and I look after some of the very complicated marketing messages that go around, controls that go into places like the Shard and all of the big residential buildings in London. They have a thing called a Hawk, and it's a open access driver box, effectively. Takes inputs in and it'll output to many different types of HVAC, security, lighting, because it's all open access. It's all languages that people are developing to do specific things, and it will read them all. It's 250 quid. The expensive bit is the guy to do the bespoke programming, because each building at the moment that is being used with is different. But my hypothesis is, if you sit down and actually take a few scenarios and build the software and the language and the controls for a few scenarios, and then give them to people and say, operate within that circle, and then here's your override path to change all of that, very much like we're doing on a zonal basis here, but in one machine. Let's do it on many different machines through a central place. Suddenly, that is the route in to a mass market. You get to the mass market, and then the rest of the residential housing and all of the things that you guys are in control of is going to follow on behind.